Hope you're having an amazing one, Wrestlezona family, and welcome back whenever you happen to be tuning in. My name is Lance Reese, your definitive host for the half hour. I've been a fan of professional wrestling since I was about 6 years old, begging my parents to buy me action figures ever since I saw videos of Jeff Hardy's Swanton bombing on YouTube. We've got another fun one for you today as we hear on episode 15 of Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse. We'll cover what's happening in the world of professional wrestling with the likes of WWE, the Indies, and even wrestling here local in the Valley. Stay tuned to hear some exciting wrestling themes. We also have some exciting segments coming up in our hour, such as our 10-bell history, and we also have an exclusive interview with the Slam U champion, Enrique Calderon. We don't got much news to report on this half hour, but we do got some news on the local scene. Don't forget that PCW AZ has their upcoming show May 17th at the Eagles Community Center. We gave away some tickets to that on the last episode of Wrestlezona live from the Rockathon. I'll be joining Rocky Mountain Pro Wrestling in Colorado. After sometime before this episode is aired, I will have been to their May 9th show, Peak of the Pack in Golden, Colorado. I'm going there to do a performance for a friend at a school, and I thought, why not do some wrestling? So we're going there. We're going to see what's up, and we're going to interview some people, so I look forward to showing you guys what we got from that. I will unfortunately be missed some local wrestler from my scene as IZW has a show May 10th at Bullshooters. Let's get into our interview with the Slam U champion, Enrique Calderon. I'm joined here today with a man who has a very shiny belt in front of me. Enrique Calderon.
Yes, sir.
You recently became the Slam U champion, to my knowledge, right?
Yes, at our last PCWAZ show, I actually defeated Joey Hendricks to become the new Slam U champion.
What does winning that championship meant to you?
It means a lot to me. Coming from training AZ and being that this title came out when I first made my debut, it's something I definitely tried to make a goal to get one day. And now that I finally achieved that goal, I am definitely on a high right now.
I heard there's an interesting story behind your Phoenix Championship Wrestling debut. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Yes, it's so crazy to be honest. So I was actually a referee when I first started my wrestling training. So when I was a referee, the plan was always to become a wrestler right after. And I did not think that moment was going to come anytime soon, but thankfully, always you got to be prepared, always got to have your gear at all times. So this the show that I was reffing at, I believe it was January 7th, 2021, and I had just reffed the first match, and I had brought my gear to get some photos done for the next upcoming shows that I could possibly be on. And as soon as we found out that we had some wrestlers that couldn't make it due to a flat tire, they next man up right here, and Don Vitale, he actually came up to me. He's like, "Hey, did you bring your stuff?" I said, "Yeah, why?" He's like, "Well, we need you to wrestle Kevin tonight." In all shock, I was just like, "All right, let's do it," and it was a dream come true.
So that was Kevin Koa you had your first match against?
Yes, sir. Kevin Koa for the Slam U Championship being my first match because the guy that he was supposed to face could not make it due to a flat tire.
Wow, that's a pretty interesting story. And what can you tell me about your personal story? Kind of how does that tie into your wrestling?
Well, I definitely always been a wrestling fan since I was like such a little kid, like 6 or 8 years old, and that mentality of wanting to be a wrestler has always carried on through through elementary, through junior high. It kind of went away once I got into high school, just as a teenager wanting to grow up to be somewhat noticed and popular. It kind of phased out. I definitely did get in a stage where I got into bad drugs and getting in with the wrong people, just making bad decisions. Eventually, after I graduated in 2020, I ended up in rehab for all the bad drugs that I've been doing. I ended up staying there for over a month and a half. And in my time in rehab, talking to counselors and being in AA meetings, it helped me find my love for wrestling again, being that that was probably the only thing we could watch down at the rehab center. That and some terrible Netflix show that they always put on. So
Mm.
getting the chance to be there and watching wrestling, once I got out, I told myself I had to do something with my life to make sure I can keep on track. And as soon as I fell in love with wrestling again, I started exploring avenues to how to get into wrestling training and how to get into wrestling programs that could actually allow me to uh, find a new addiction.
Mm. And how did you get into your training?
So I started looking up wrestling schools, and a few schools came up. Um, Arizona Wrestling Federation, um, the most of the schools that came up that were suggested and recommended were definitely Training AZ, and all my attention drew over there, and I just wanted to explore those avenues of trying to get into that school.
Mm. Um, so from my understanding, you tend to have a more lucha type style to your wrestling.
Yes, sir.
Being you are from Mexico, did lucha libre influence your style in any way?
Oh yeah, I've always grew up loving guys like Rey Mysterio, Eddie Guerrero, guys like La Parca. So being from Obregon, Sonora, Mexico, and knowing all the guys and the culture that comes from Mexico, I take pride in that, and I really try to show that in all my wrestling.
Mm. What do you think about the WWE acquiring AAA?
That is amazing. Hearing that and getting the chance to be in a stage where I am an up and coming wrestler, it's great news, and I can only hope to thrive on that
Mm.
opportunity.
Yeah. Um, do you do you have like a do you have a favorite promotion that you have wrestled for, or like a number of promotions that you've wrestled for in the Southwest?
Yeah, so I've honestly mostly only wrestled down here in the West Coast. Some of my favorite shows are definitely our shows down here, PCWAZ. We always have our anniversary show in September, and our last show drew around 15 to 1600 people. So now the goal here is to draw around 2,000. And another show that I do that I really love is down in New Mexico called Duke City Championship Wrestling. Always get treated very well down there, and the wrestling over there is amazing. We bring a lot of our guys from Arizona to come wrestle down there, and I feel like the talent is just getting better and better all the time, and the shows are just getting bigger and bigger too.
Is it a lot of familiar faces, not just with the wrestlers, but with the attendants and the crew?
For sure, I feel like you always have your regulars that come down to most of the shows, and they can always recognize you and see what shows you're doing next. So that's always super cool when they get the feeling of recognizing you.
Hmm. My understanding, you started your wrestling training when you were fairly young.
Yeah, 19 years old.
19. Wow. How did you well, how was it like starting that journey at 19?
Honestly, I felt like a kid in a man's world. Not even gonna lie.
Mm.
Being 19, and once I got to the school, it was literally guys who were in their mid 20s, in their late and early 30s, and I always thought like this. People got into this very very young, and which they do. But coming from my school, a lot of the guys that were already there were a lot more mature and a lot more older.
Mm. Is that commonplace with some of the mentors you've met throughout? They're more or have you met any mentors and some of the younger folks?
Honestly, I try to take more advice from more of the older guys that we have down here who have more of a mature and adult like thinking, especially being an only child and coming from a family that didn't always see his dad as much because he was always working and putting in extra hours trying to give us the life that we deserve. I always try to take advice from the older gentlemen that we have here just to get a an adult perspective.
Mm. Do you have a father figure in wrestling?
Definitely my trainer Don Vitale. I can't tell you how many times he's given me such great advice, and not just with wrestling, but with life, and helping me navigate my way towards success.
Are there any unsung mentors of yours in pro wrestling outside of your personal bubble?
Definitely I definitely have like my cousins and my family, my dad, that just drive me every single day, and that's really who I look towards when I'm like really feeling down and I have to get that extra time in at the gym or extra time in at practice. I got to think to myself, well, I gotta help them and get my money up and get signed so I can make sure that I'm providing for my family one day, just how they provided for me.
Mm.
So that's what really drives me to towards success.
As you've matured yourself, are there any people or types of people you idolize today?
Yes, definitely guys like my father and Don Vitale. I still try to look towards them, and I always grew up loving guys like John Cena, who I know now is not such a great guy in the sense, but he was definitely a guy who I look to model myself after. Like, okay, he's in such great shape. He's a great role model to kids, and he lives by these three words: hustle, loyalty, and respect. And I try to drive those models into myself as well. Being a champion now and knowing that a lot of kids look up to me and wanting to be like me in the ring, I got to make sure that I'm always setting myself to the highest example.
Do you see yourself as a good role model for the kids or the people that you entertain?
Oh yeah, for sure. I always think of myself being a great role model to try to navigate towards the youth and making sure that they know that I'm always representing them, and especially my Mexican culture right there. I'm always representing my raza, my familia right there, and all my Mexicans. I love them.
Have you ever suffered any injuries in wrestling?
So I'm actually coming off an injury right now. Today we have a show. I'm defending my Slam U championship for the first time against Freddie Cordova, but that's after coming off a broken finger.
Mm,
Yeah, I just broke my middle finger recently, like 5 weeks ago.
wow. Other than the physical, how did it affect you psychologically?
Honestly, pro wrestling has probably been the most hardest mental thing I've ever done in my life. Being that being a guy who came from sports his whole life, playing baseball, basketball, wrestling, but once I got into pro wrestling, it mentally it was so hard on me, and I just had to tell myself, okay, what's the end goal? What's the end goal? Trying to trying to make it into WWE, trying to get signed one day, and just having that mindset in my head all the time is the only thing that really kind of helped me to make it through the whole training.
Mm. I read somewhere that you yourself said you must have discipline, and you were pretty strict on that. What can you elaborate on what you mean by must have discipline?
Yes. So there's a saying in wrestling. You don't want to look like your next door neighbor, especially when you're in the ring. So when you're in the ring representing pro wrestling, everything that we do, you always want to make sure you're in the best shape, and not only in the best shape, but your character is at to the highest expertise that it could be. So I always try to take myself with this mindset of, okay, I need to be at my best at all times. So making sure my physical shape is really good, and always making sure I'm up to par with my ring skills, because at the end of the day, I know I never want to make a fool of myself in the ring.
Mm. Kind of backtracking onto what you were saying about being in sports. Were you since a kid? Were you always in sports?
Oh yeah. At first I was such a chubby kid coming from Mexico. I came to the U.S. when I was only 5 years old. So once I actually got to the U.S., my dad transitioned me into basketball, soccer, any sport that he could put me in. I just started doing, and that's how I slowly started to lose weight and started to transition into a new body that I found myself into.
Mm. Um, so that's how you went about going into the shape you are now, or when did that peak physique really kick in?
Ooh, I mean, I was always such a skinny kid in high school. Definitely in junior high, that's when I started losing weight. But I don't think I really started taking my physical shape very very serious until I got into wrestling. Once I turned 19 and I found out that I was gonna be a wrestler, I was like, okay, it's time to build that mentality where I need to get myself in peak physical shape and in the best condition I possibly can. Because once I'm actually able to make my debut, I want to make sure that I am not looking, like I said, like my next door neighbor.
Do you have any health advice for any upcoming wrestlers?
Honestly, I always try to tell myself don't be so hard on yourself. So I always at least make sure that I am maintaining some form of protein every day with a good source of carbs. But it's for me, I'm a big candy guy, and like I love sugar, so that's really like what I try to stay away from. Drinking lots of water throughout the day, especially being in Arizona with this crazy heat. It's always good to drink a lots amount of water, but it's mostly just getting your protein in and getting a good source of carbs with that throughout the day. As long as you're doing that and you're working out constantly and getting your cardio in, then the rest is going to work itself out.
Do you have a favorite cheat meal?
Yes, I love tacos. Like tacos are my favorite right there. Any form of tacos right are my go-to for sure.
El pastor or carne asada?
Al pastor. There you go. Yeah. That's
It
a hard one though. I will say that is a hard one.
is a hard one. Do you have? I'm just gonna run by some basic questions.
Yeah.
Okay. Do you have a favorite wrestler?
Of all time or currently?
Give me both.
Got you. So of all time, definitely got to be Eddie Guerrero. I being a guy who takes a lot of his moves and put it into my own move set and make it my own. That is one guy I really really love and all time favorite right there. Currently though, and being that I get compared to this guy a lot, Dominic Mysterio, he's killing it right now,
He
and
is, yeah.
yeah, I love the work that he's doing as a heel, and I feel like he's probably the best that they got right now.
Do you have a Mount Rushmore of Mexican wrestlers?
Ooh, putting me on the spot right here. Okay, yeah. So there is a lot, and I feel like Rey Mysterio's definitely got to be there. Eddie Guerrero, and being a guy that always watched Juventud Guerrero, definitely he's got to be on there. And I would have to say Psychosis, especially because I always feel like there's no Rey Mysterio without Psychosis for all the work that they've done in ECW and even in WWE.
Yeah, it's a good pick. Going a little bit more into your personal story, was there any struggles throughout, or yeah, were there any struggles that set you back?
Yeah, I feel like anytime you get into pro wrestling, life in general is gonna get way harder. Just being that this is such a hard career to get into, I always try to manage my time wisely so I can make sure I equally have time for everything in life. Um, I'm not the best at it, but you do what you can. So I definitely feel like life is where I struggle the most, getting the missing holidays or birthdays, funerals. That's something you just got to accept sometimes because it's going to happen. But it's the life that I chose for myself, and I knew what I was getting myself into doing this. But having a family that understands, like, hey, like, I'm going to be busy throughout most of the time, so I'm going to be missing stuff. But they understand that it's for a good reason.
What's been a hidden joy throughout your career?
Being a hidden joy is definitely getting to meet some of my favorite wrestlers that I grew up watching. Getting to meet guys like Chavo Guerrero. I got to meet guys like La Parca, Alexander Hammerstone, Jacob Fatu, which is like so surreal to me because it's just like I still feel like a kid in a candy shop sometimes, like getting to meet these guys. So it's definitely surreal.
As we wrap up episode 15 of Wrestlezona on 88.7 The Pulse, I'm Lance Arias, and I've been joined in studio with Slam U champion Enrique Calderon. And Enrique, I have one last question for you. What is a match of yours that everyone has to see at least once?
One match that I feel like you have to see at least once to really understand Enrique Calderon is my last match at PCW Ultra in Los Angeles, California. It was a dark match that I had with Jaden Money Monroe, and I definitely feel like that day I was on one that day, and I was feeling the crowd so great, and getting to watch that back, because I usually hate watching my matches back. I hate it. It's just so cringe for me, but that one match right there is one that I really, really enjoy always watching. So that's definitely one that everyone's got to go check out.
And where can they check it out?
Yeah, you can go check it out on my YouTube page, at Enrique Calderon on YouTube, or you can find the link on my Instagram, at Enrique Calderon.
Well, Enrique, thank you for coming on Wrestlezona. I appreciate your time.
Thank you. I'll have a good time defending that Slam U championship and coming back with it as well.
Look forward to our conversation.
Oh, yeah.
Well, that wraps up episode 15 of Wrestlezona here on 88.7 The Pulse. I'm Lance Reese. Do you have a favorite theme song of a wrestler that you want to hear? Are you a wrestler and you are interested in being interviewed? Please reach out. At Wrestlezona is where you can find me on all socials. We got some exciting news, like I mentioned, that Colorado trip I will be talking about on episode 16 next Sunday, so you won't want to miss it. Stay tuned to 88.7 The Pulse. This has been Lance Reese with Wrestlezona, and until next time,